Begin the presentations for this is right across the street there at the intersection of 17th and East Gray Street. And our first presenter here will be Kim Allen. She is a cultural anthropologist, and she will give an overview of slavery and the slave trade in Richmond.
Okay, so I'm a teacher and not a preacher, and so this is a little history lesson, and we'll have to do it very quickly in 10 minutes, the whole history of slavery in Shockoe Bottom here. But I want to make several points that I want you to listen for. The first is that Richmond became wealthy for breeding and selling human beings. The second is that Shockoe Bottom, this area here, was at the heart of this particular form of economic development. And third, the result of this is that most, or it's upwards to half of all African Americans can trace their ancestry through this area. Okay. So first, slavery in Virginia. In 1619, the first Africans arrived in Jamestown, Virginia as indentured servants. So we didn't come to this country as enslaved people, but as indentured servants. In 1630, miscegenation was outlawed. The first Africans were brought to Virginia's Jamestown in 1619 as indentured servants. And the idea for indentured servitude came out of the need for cheap labor in the colonies. Servants typically worked for 4 to 7 years in exchange for passage, room and board, lodging, and freedom of dues. Life was harsh and restrictive, but indentured servitude was not slavery. Slavery became codified in law, or codified or made law, after a lawsuit in 1654. It became a law in 1654. By 1662, 8 years later, slavery had become a racial caste system. So it wasn't necessarily connected up with race initially, but it became so in 1662. And this is important to see that this system developed over time. It wasn't whole and complete when it was introduced, but it developed over time. In 1691, the law was amended such that mixed-race children. So first off, when it became codified in law and became a racial caste system, it ruled that the children of enslaved women would be born into slavery regardless of the father's race or status. And that was very different from English common law. In English common law, the children gained the status of the father. But in this colony, it was quite the opposite. So the children of the enslaved woman became slaves themselves. In 1699, Virginia passed a law deporting all free blacks. And by doing so, because not all of us were enslaved yet, and in doing so, defining slaves, all persons of African descent who remained in the city. So if you were a free person, and you chose to, free black, and you chose to stay in Virginia after 1699, you risked being enslaved. Okay, now Richmond's role in the transatlantic slave trade. So what we had was, this place was the place that received international cargo, if you will, people from outside of the United States. African men, women, and children who survived the Middle Passage were brought by ship up the James River. They were unloaded at Manchester Dock. But Shockoe Bottom's role in this, Africans from the continent into becoming what's called a breeder state. By the 1830s, instead of principally receiving human cargo or human beings from overseas, Shockoe Bottom increasingly functioned as the place of departure for enslaved Africans, being grown like a cash crop and sold from Virginia to plantations in the Deep South. And so what we know about a cash crop is that